Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, the intelligence funds tucked in the proposed 2024 national budget, and the request for a bigger travel fund raised questions once again. The opening of classes in public schools is set this month, but a senator wants to look into the readiness of schools, and a senator clarifies his involvement in a reclamation project opposed by the U.S. Embassy. Senator Win Gatchalian joins us live here in the studio. It's the budget season, and the Marcos administration's proposed confidential and intelligence funds is in the spotlight once again. The government defended its proposal to earmark 9.2 billion pesos in confidential and intel funds in the 5.76 trillion peso national expenditure budget. Budget Chief Amina Pangandaman also supported President Bongbong Marcos' request for a higher allocation of his travels next year. Let's go straight to the source of the story of Senator Win Gatchalian. Senator, good to see you.
Good to see you, Pinky. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. I just want to gloss over this budget because I know you will scrutinize this not even after the House of Representatives passes it, because you already have, you can look into it sa mga committees.
Look at the NEP, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So the NEP is, I want to start with, it's about 9.5% higher than this year's budget. Is it a reasonable increase let's say year on year in the past?
The benchmark normally, Pinky, is our growth rate in terms of GDP. So we're growing around 5 to 6%. So in other words, this budget is outgrowing the growth of our economy, no? Because the budget has increased about 9% more or less. No?
Yeah.
So it's quite an ambitious proposal, no? Because probably a lot of those are contingent in new revenues that will come in. So what we're saying is we increase the budget, but we have to collect more.
You need to generate more money.
Correct. Because in theory, if you pass beyond the growth of our economy, that means there are new sources coming in.
Right.
So we have to look at those new sources as well.
And that's where you come in as committee chairperson of the Ways and Means Committee.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
May mga marami ho kasing priority din dyan po si Pangulo, but I'll jump into that later. 10 billion muna ito. That's the more accurate one. It's 10 billion in intel rather, and confidential funds. Almost half of that, about 4.5 billion, goes to the office of the president. Some intel, some confidential funds. Do you see problems here? Hindi ho ba? Is it a little bit bloated, you think, or not?
Well, Pinky, the intel funds and confidential funds is really the prerogative of the executive. They have projects to use for, if they have programs to use for the intelligence funds, it's their prerogative. What's important are the safeguards. No? So under the rules, COA needs to audit that. And then number two, we have oversight to look at those audit reports. No? Typically, these reports are being analyzed by both houses, by Congress and by the Senate, and to see whether those expenditures or those funds are being used wisely.
Is this something that has been done by the Senate in the past, the oversight committee?
There's for example...
When was the last time you did this?
The last time was the last budget. No?
Okay.
And I remember the Senate, through the minority leader, scrutinized this intelligence fund. It became actually a point of debate during those times. So once again, when we come back, we will look at those reports by COA and see whether these funds are being used wisely.
But offhand, when you look at 4.5 billion pesos as intel and confidential funds, to which pag nagkakaroon po ng budget season, there's a lot of pushing and pulling here, because palaging kulang sa funds, kailangan pang classroom, kailangan pang textbook, etc., which I'm sure you would want to focus on a little later on.
Yeah.
Are you okay with a 4.5 billion intel fund? Because that's the same as last year,
well,
sir.
Pinky, in my view, we have to look at what is it intended for. No? If it's intended for example, to fight insurgency, is it intended for, if it's intended for to fight drugs? For example, when I was a mayor, normally when you have pusher-buyer activities, no? So you have money to use for example, buying
bust.
from buy bust operations. These are actually taken from your confidential funds or intelligence funds if you plan to gather intelligence first. So there are legitimate uses for those funds. No? What's important is COA audits them, and then Congress gets the COA report and analyze those reports, whether they are used wisely or not.
And then there is 500. So basically right now, it seems that you're okay with it because there are ways such as the COA and the oversight function of Congress.
There are safeguards to make sure that those funds are not being abused. And what's important is to use that report to convene the oversight committee to scrutinize it through the budget as well. No?
Okay.
And Congress normally does that through its budget process.
So 500 million also for the OVP and 150 million for DepEd, especially. I'm already assuming you don't have issues either with the 500 million for the OVP because there are ways to look into this. What about the 150 million for the DepEd, which was a bone of contention, quite
during
a
the last budget,
during
yes.
this year's budget, actually during last year's budget, which was implemented.
Right.
Ano ho ba to? Is 150 million okay for DepEd? Do they really need this?
When we met with DepEd during the budget hearing, and it was disclosed to us that it will also be used to, for example, to fight drugs, to gather intelligence against insurgency. Admittedly, some of our schools are being used being used by insurgents to get support. So we are made to appreciate that those funds are meant to get information to fight all of these criminal activities. Now, the next question is this coming budget. It's important, again, to look at the previous allocation, whether it was used appropriately or not. And that's what we intend to do.
That's what you need to do before, paano ho ba yun before the year ends?
Before the year
Ganun ho ba
ends.
yun?
So part of the deliberation is, how did you use the budget last time?
Yeah.
How did you, what is the disbursement rate?
Because this is a first for the DepEd.
I understand this is the first. Yeah, I understand
think
this is
so
the
too.
first. Yeah.
So, okay, so apart from that, this other one, 1.4 billion allotted for the overseas trips. There was a press conference yesterday with Secretary Mina Pangandaman, and she was saying that, we need to put the Philippines back in the map. This is for investor to prop up investment in the country, and it's justifiable. Is really 1.4 justifiable? That's a 58% increase from last year, sir.
Pinky, I looked at the investment pledges by the PSA, and looking at the records, looking at the data, the pledges went up by about 120% from the time President BBM came into his administration. And that's quite a big jump, no? But these are pledges, admittedly. No, we have to translate that into real investment. But the pledges is the start, no? Pledges to the different investment promotion agencies, to PEZA.
Are you happy with that big jump?
Yeah,
even if it's just pledges?
Yeah, because it's 100%, it's almost double, no? More than double. So, in other words, in my analysis, the past trips of the president is bearing fruit by attracting interest to our country, by attracting pledges to invest in our country. Now, the biggest question and the biggest challenge is when the actual investment will come in and the follow-through of those investments. And that's a different story because you have to now pass through the government processes, you have to talk to government agencies, and admittedly, we need to fix red tape in our country. But in terms of attracting interest, especially investors to come in, it seems to me that the trips are bearing fruit.
He's been successful?
He's been successful based on the PSA data that we have gathered.
Okay.
And so it's the trips are justifiable. And I think that's a formula that our president is applying in order to bring foreign investment to our country.
So you're echoing what Secretary Mina Pangandaman
I'm echoing the PSA
saying.
data. I'm not echoing myself.
Sir, she was asked this yesterday and she said it's justifiable. Yun din po ang sinabi niya. Same word as you used.
Yeah, but mine is based on the PSA data that we were trying to analyze because that's actually one of the we were looking at investments and we're trying to compare different administration and the strategies that they employ. Our president is the chief investment officer of our country. No? He's the one personally going on international roadshows to attract investors to our country. That's a different formula that this administration is applying. You know?
True.
So
Compared to the Duterte administration.
compared to the Duterte
huh?
administration, even the past administration. And I think it's a unique approach. It's very, it's very taxing because you have to fly around, but it's a unique approach, and I think it's bearing fruit because of the interest that is coming into our country.
So let me ask you this, since you brought that up. While there would be some sectors who will say this is bearing fruit, this kind of precedent is putting us back in the map of investments, bringing investments in the country. And yet there is this criticism, sir, that alis naman ng alis yung ating Pangulo. May bagyo dito, umalis si Pangulo, etc. How do you reconcile that? Do you think that sumobra na bang dami ng trips ng Pangulo, or reasonable naman, justified because may kapalit?
Well, Pinky, based on the news reports that I read, the trips are not very long.
They're
Typically
quite short.
2 days, 3 days, and packed with meetings. And the template there is to meet with the head of state, with OFWs, and investors. And that's the template that I've seen in the last 1 year. So, in other words, there's a direction in the trips. It's not vacation.
Walang R&R.
There's no R&R, correct. There's no R&R. So, I think because of that, I think it's really a management issue, It's or a management style. So the president goes into short trips, but delegates a lot of this important and day-to-day matters to his secretaries.
So you I guess, plain and simple, you don't see a problem with that. Last count, I think, sir, I'm not sure if this is accurate, but it's probably 13 trips in 12
It's almost
countries.
once a month, I think, more or less.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think to be fair, we have to look at the numbers. And based on the PSA pledges that we've seen,
Right.
it increased 120%.
Okay.
So that's for me, that's a big jump from the last administration.
So plain and simple, you don't have a problem with a 1.4 billion pesos allotted for the overseas trips?
For me, it's justifiable.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll be taking a short break. We need to talk about education. School starts on August 29. August 29. Are the schools ready? We'll be talking about that after the break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. We have breaking news here on CNN Philippines. Inflation further eases to 4.7% in July from 5.4% in June. It keeps its downward trend for the 6th straight month. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, the July inflation rate is within 4.1 to 4.9% forecast range of the central bank. Again, inflation further eases to 4.7% from 5% in June. Any reaction? That's quite a big jump, sir.
It's a big jump. It's a good trend. Although when we were looking at the 2023 average, it's still around 7%. So that's beyond the 5-6% range. But with this month alone, it looks like it's within the range, and it's good. The trend is looking good. So that means it's good for our economy because they can now lower down interest rates, lowering down borrowing costs, and hopefully create more economic activity in our country.
Are you worried about August, though? Because it seems like we're starting August not in such a good
I'm worried
note.
about El Nino and the effects of Egay. 16 provinces declared state of calamity.
Over 200 areas na ata, sir.
Region 3, Region 2, and Region 1. These are food granaries of our country. So I'm worried about India's move to stop exports of rice. Because of that, other countries will now look for other sources, one of which is Vietnam, which is our primary source of rice. So that will create imbalances in the global supply of rice, and that's what I'm worried.
It's just like oil.
Correct. Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Because you remove Russia,
one major player.
you remove Russia. Now people are buying from other sources and pushing prices up.
All right, basic education. Of course, we're still talking about the completion of Department of Education on the K to 10. It doesn't mean just because it's K to 10, wala na po yung K to 12.
No, yeah. That's a good clarification. It's actually because the last two is senior high school, and it has a unique curriculum because it has tech voc, it has other strands. So what DepEd did is to revise kindergarten up to grade 10, but they will also revise the senior high school program.
How's it so far, the review of the K to 10?
Our initial analysis is they took note of the problem of congestion. No? We're teaching too many things, too many competencies to our children that they end up learning nothing. No? So they addressed that by reducing the number of competencies by almost 70%, actually. No? So that's a lot of reduction in competencies. But we're still at par compared to Singapore or to Malaysia in terms of the number of competencies.
Sa madaling salita, anong ibig sabihin nun, Senator? Less subjects.
In short, less subjects.
By 70%?
By almost the competencies by almost 70%. So it can be same subjects, but per subject it will be lesser competencies. No? So that's
ano
how.
Yun sa Tagalog? Can you explain that?
In competencies,
Sorry, I don't
parang,
get it.
for example, when you teach math, no? When you teach math, they teach, let's say, addition. That's a competency. Or subtraction, that's a competency. So
they will lessen that.
They will lessen that. They will lessen that. And for Key Stage 1, which is kindergarten to grade 3, they will focus on foundational skills, no? reading, math, and writing. No? So these are the skills that they want to build. Because admittedly, after that World Bank report, no, in which 90% of our children cannot read a simple story, there's now a direction to strengthen the fundamental or the foundational skills of our children in what they call the Key Stage 1, which is kindergarten all the way to grade 3.
So it will really be a lot of reading, math,
a lot
and writing.
of basics no, in kindergarten and grade 3, and then reduce competencies so children can study, teachers can prepare, and they will not be overloaded with too many things that they are studying. No?
Is that, sorry if I missed it, is that being implemented now, or is that part of the K to 10 review?
It will be launched this coming August. I think August is the launch of the new curriculum for K to 10.
I see. So it starts this August 29 already. I see.
But there's also a caveat to that. No? During the pandemic, they slowly reduced the number of competencies. If you remember, we couldn't go to school. So it's a aberration in the way we teach children. So actually, the one positive thing that came out of that is DepEd was forced to reduce competencies, but they reduced it some more based on this new curriculum.
Okay, so it will allow the students, I guess, to grasp, study, and focus more.
Yes. What a lot of the experts are saying, teaching our kids too many things is not good because they don't have time to study. The teachers don't have time to teach. In fact, there's a survey that they conducted that all of our teachers, on the average, can only complete half of the competencies that are assigned to them.
Really?
Because we only have 200 days. And just to give you an idea, no, in one subject, we have 200 days, but the competencies can run up to 1,000 competencies. So they have to teach more than 5 or 10 competencies a day. No? So in other words, there's no mastery. For example, addition, there's no mastery in that concept because they're teaching
because they have
so many
to teach another competency. Parang ganun po.
Correct. So the concept there is mastery. No? And that's the aim of this new curriculum.
And are schools ready for August 29, sir?
We're conducting a hearing to that effect. We want to know whether our schools are ready, our teachers are ready, and what are the problems that our schools are facing. So we're going to conduct a hearing on that just to see the readiness of our schools.
But what is your major concern
for
the school opening?
For basic education? Well, my major concern is number one, our teachers. No? The preparation of our teachers in terms of teaching this new curriculum. No? I know our teachers are professional, they were well trained, but the timing of that release of that new curriculum is also something that we need to consider. No? Second is the usual...
Sorry, why? Because it was...
Well, the teachers need to get familiar with the new curriculum. No? They need to prepare the lesson plan, they need to also internalize the new curriculum, so they need ample time to prepare for that new curriculum. The other challenges are the usual challenges, no? Classrooms, books, number of teachers. Those are the things that we'll be looking at.
that budget, just quickly, I know this is something you will definitely look into. I have that it's about 900. Under the law, the education department is supposed to get the biggest chunk.
Yes,
hindi
the
ba?
education sector.
The education sector, and we're looking at 924 billion, which is 16% of the net.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Which is good, actually. So the education sector is composed of 4 things, no? The DepEd, CHED, TESDA, and the SUCs. So all the SUCs are part of the education sector. It's good that they're not only getting a big chunk of the budget, but they're also getting a sizable increase. I think about 10% also.
It was also yesterday that one of the members of the media asked the DBM secretary about the budget sa UP. I know marami pa kung kailangan aralin dito, pero parang from what I gathered, I think it was decreased, but the defense or the reasoning behind it was because there's a lot of 2023 projects that need to be completed.
Yeah.
Hence, kaya it seems bumababa daw po.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you look into that.
Yeah.
You're busy with other things which we need to talk about because you are chairperson of the Ways and Means Committee. That means taxes.
Not solely taxes.
Are there going to be what are the priority siguro revenue generating legislation that will be up? We'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Senator Win Gatchalian. Before we go to legislation, Sir Pogo, I remember in April you said that the Senate submitted a report to the President to ban Pogo. And sabi niyo po, parang not the exact words, malapit na.
Yeah.
May, June, July, August, or 4 months later. What's the update?
Well, I know that this is an ongoing struggle, and me and some other senators are also taking the fight to ban Pogos. Pinky, in the last 60 days, 4,000 human traffic victims were rescued. I think just a few days ago, another incident of human trafficking happened in a Pogo company. So, in other words, this human trafficking incident will not go away as long as Pogo is here. Because Pogo now is being used as a front for human trafficking. And we're now becoming the human trafficking hub of Southeast Asia. It's an ongoing struggle, I know that, and it's an ongoing fight, but we're ready to take the long haul until we ban Pogos in our country.
You know, I saw parts of that hearing, sir, no? And that's when you said 4,000 human trafficking individuals. Yeah. And sabi nyo nga, just to echo what you said earlier, we're not just a Pogo hub of the world, but we're the human trafficking
hub
of the world.
Of the world, becoming the human trafficking hub of the world.
You were right. There was a hearing here together with Senator Risa Ontiveros. It was a Clark Freeport. You talked about that with officials, and you said that they said that there are reforms that will be done. And you there was a point you made that you said, are you just saying that to appease us, or are you really going to do this? What kind of reforms could be instituted while Pogos are still here?
Well, just to be fair to the new administration of PAGCOR, the disclosure that they told us is part of their due diligence is these Pogos are subleasing their licenses to other entities that they don't know. No? And actually, it took them almost 5 years to figure that out. No? But now that they've figured that out, they're trying to cleanse the ranks of that Pogo by banning all of these sub-licensees. Apparently, their explanation to us, the criminal activities are being conducted by those sub-licensees. But my argument...
But why would you sub-license? That's what I don't understand,
maybe these sub-licensees are paying more to the original licensee. But the point there being is, these licensees have no right to sublease their license. And the mere fact they didn't get approval from PAGCOR, it's already a violation of their contract. So now we're flying blind. We don't know who are operating here in our country because they're subleasing to entities that government don't know.
Which is clear, you're saying it's a violation. If they, number one, they can't license. Tama ho ba yung words?
Yeah, they cannot sub-license.
Okay.
Apparently, they cannot sub-license under their license contract.
According to PAGCOR.
According to PAGCOR,
And if they do, which number one, they shouldn't, is because they should tell PAGCOR. But why will they tell PAGCOR if they're not allowed to do that in the first place? I guess, while this is pending, what is the immediate solution to this? I mean, how many POGO hubs do we have? Why not look into each and every one of them?
That should be the case, no? And I read in a news report this morning that PAGCOR is now doing precisely that because of all of these investigations and all of these things happening. So what I understand, and through the hearing and through what I read, is PAGCOR is now reviewing each and every license and assessing whether they subleased those licenses to entities that they don't know. But the whole point here, what I'm getting is, Pinky, is we don't know who are operating in our country because there are sub-licensees that are not registered with PAGCOR. That's why we have 17 fugitives that were detected, because these fugitives are not in the original licensee but under the sub-licensees.
Which there should not be sub-licensees to begin with, I guess.
It's a wild, wild west now. That's why all of these things are happening. But the point there is, as long as POGO is here, no? And these guys are operating in our country, we will see all of these crimes happening. And sayang Green Roadshow ng ating Pangulo. He's going to different countries, attracting investors, explaining that our country is safe. But we're not safe because POGOs are here and there are human trafficking activities here and there are fugitives operating here in our country.
Unfortunately, sir, we've run out of time. Legislation supposed to be on measures, no, to increase generation. Maybe for 30 seconds, sir, you can give us the priorities.
We're focusing on administration. Number one, digitalization, making it simple for our taxpayers, and focus on MSMEs. This is the essence of the ease of paying taxes that we plan to approve in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay, and then one more. Dagdag ka na, sir, isa pa. VAT on ano?
VAT on digital transactions also, to even the playing field, because our local digital service providers are already paying VAT, but their foreign counterparts are not, no? Because there's a loophole in the law that we plan to plug.
And you plan to do that
also in the next few weeks.
All right. Senator Win Gatchalian, sir, I know you have a lot on your plate. I wish to speak to you again because there are other measures that are up. Motor user vehicle tax, etc. So, salt and sugar foods, etc. So another time maybe. Sir, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.